Well, back to our top story this morning, and that's the new low that the Liberal Party has reached, according to the latest Newspoll out today, published in The Australian. A day after the coalition reformed came polling that shows the Liberals at a primary vote of just 15%, making Sussan Ley the most unpopular leader of a major party since Simon Crean in 2003. And it led to this powerful contribution from Liberal Senator and backbencher Jane Hume earlier on the program.
My message to my leaders is that if you have a rabbit in your hat, it's time to reach for that bunny, because we cannot continue this way. Because people have stopped listening to us because we are a rabble. But I'm concerned that the colleagues that I work with every single day that are really digging deep in their own electorates, that are trying to represent their communities, are doing it all for naught, because we are being led astray.
Well, led astray. Let's go to Canberra now. Joining us is the opposition leader, Sussan Ley. Let's get your reaction to Jane Hume's comments this morning, Sussan, that the party is being led astray.
Well, good morning, Pete. And in any political party, there's different views and characterisations about direction, and the proper place to have that discussion is inside the party room. In public, we must present a credible alternative to the Australian people, and millions of Australians are struggling, and yes, they're frustrated and angry right now, and they want us to be a strong and focused opposition. And yesterday, David Littleproud and I announced that the Liberals and Nationals were coming back together, resolved our differences, very much focused on the aspirations, the hopes and the needs of Australians, and they expect no less, they deserve no less, and they will receive no less.
Back to Jane Hume's comments, because she pointed out that on current trends, you won't have a Victorian Liberal in the lower house beyond the next election. Is that not possible on current trends?
Pete, these polls are a point in time, and I understand that when people see disunity and when they see politicians talking about themselves in Canberra instead of talking about the real needs of struggling Australians, they mark us down. But we are focused on the needs of Australians, and nothing is more important to me right now than the things I deeply believe in, which are how we deliver after 13 interest rate rises that mean that families are saying, how can we do this? 2 incomes and you're still not meeting the mortgage payments, struggling with those back-to-school costs for the kids, wondering about your next power bill, our amazing small businesses that are drowning in red tape. As I said, these are things I deeply care about, and in leading a team that is determined to focus on the Australian people, this Albanese government does not have the answers to the pressing problems that Australians face.
The problem is...
The plan that we have, that we've started to talk about, does have those answers.
The problem is, Sussan, your polling is now at 15%. That makes you, as I pointed out earlier, the most unpopular leader since Simon Crean of a major party since 2003. Do you not have to take some responsibility for those dire polls?
I understand that people mark us down when they see disunity, and they have seen for 17 days a lot of going forwards and backwards on different matters between the Liberals and Nationals, and they haven't liked that. And they never like it when we have that focus or overlay of disunity before and while we talk about them.
It's
now,
not just
we
the
have,
last few
and
weeks,
we still
though,
are
Sussan.
focused on them.
This trend has been going on for some time.
Pete, I want to make this...
Okay.
I want to make this point clear, and I know you've got to ask these questions, and I know that they are the focus of what happens here in Canberra, but we are still taking the fight up to Labor. Great members of my economic team had the Reserve Bank Governor acknowledge what the Treasurer won't, which is that government spending is putting up inflation, and we have announced policies around affordable energy that bring back manufacturing to this country, that bring people's power prices down, and we will demonstrate after, as I said, the two parties have reunited, that we are squarely focused on the Australian people. And I do acknowledge that that's the most important thing. It's the most important thing for me as leader, because for me, it's always been about fighting for the next generation. And when we look at that next generation set to inherit a lower standard of living from their parents, kids who tell me that they don't know if they'll ever own a home of their own, mums who say they want to step back from this crazy 2 jobs and rushing here, there and everywhere, but they don't know how they can ever meet the bills. And families everywhere who see the pressures of a migration policy from Labor that has gotten out of control, that is putting pressure and squeeze everywhere, particularly in our cities. And we will be talking about our migration policy principles very soon.
Is your job safe?
Yes, it is.
Are you expecting a spill?
No. And I want to say this, Pete. When I talk to all of the people that you reflect on, and there are characterisations about conversations, I know that we are firmly focused on holding this government to account. How? When we tackle this parliamentary week in the House of Representatives, we actually get the Prime Minister and the Treasurer to take responsibility for the pain they've caused with 13 interest rate rises. We've got a process here called Senate Estimates. That's actually pushing the government to be transparent and honest about the things they have done and the things that they haven't done that do not reflect what Australians expect of them. People are very unhappy with Anthony Albanese, and we will take the fight up to him and his awful government every single day.
So if there is a spill, and whether it's this week or next week, you think you've got enough support to survive it?
That's a hypothetical that I'm not engaging in.
OK, I mean,
I lead a team, Pete. I lead a team.
They just feel an inevitability about this, though, Susan, because, I mean, try as you might, and you got the coalition back on yesterday, despite it breaking up for a bit. Again, we're going back to the polls, and you're just not resonating. You're whether it's the Liberals or the Nationals, you're just not resonating, and it seems as though this is heading towards an inevitable conclusion. Do you not see it that way?
I know you've got to ask these questions, Pete, but my team elected me and I lead a team with determination and focus. I'm up for the job. We're up for the job. We've got a big task ahead of us. We've got work that we have done that demonstrates our plan to the Australian people, fixing the budget, lower personal income tax rates, bringing down your power bill. And as I said, we'll soon be announcing our migration policy principles, and then focusing, as we always do as the Liberal Party and indeed the Coalition, on families and how we can better support them.
So here's the problem with the renewed coalition, is that no one's really buying it, because what happens when you disagree with a policy down the track? What's the guarantee that you won't just split up again?
David Littleproud and I made this very clear yesterday. We will not. We are here as a team going straight into the next election, which is over 2 years away. And we did have differences. We were upfront about that. We've resolved those. We've strengthened our processes. There's quite a bit of detail about that in my statement and David's about how we've done that. And it is important because Australians expect no less of us. And this period of time has been difficult for millions of Australians. It has been challenging, and I want to assure them that the Coalition is firmly focused on their needs, their aspirations, their hopes for their future. And for me, it always is, Pete, the next generation and how we best support them right now.
Do you need to start looking at one nation policies? Because that's what's resonating with a lot of people, and it's where a big chunk of your base is going.
I think that reflects the disappointment, even anger that Australians are expressing right now, because they are struggling and they don't see answers coming out of the Albanese government. Now, One Nation is good at identifying problems, but not so good at providing solutions to those problems. So what my team and I are doing is providing those solutions with what we've already announced about fixing the budget, which is heading towards $1.2 trillion in debt. And I know I say this every time I talk to you, so I'm going to say it again. $50,000 of interest every single minute on the country's debt. That's $50,000 a minute that could be going to supporting the next generation into homes, that could be going into health and education and all the things Australians expect of their government in Canberra.
Can I just while you were talking about immigration and your policies about to be announced, but I was going through One Nation's suite of policies last night, and particularly on immigration, I want to ask you about it. Given that there's this drift to One Nation now where you've lost a lot of your base, so Pauline Hanson wants to deport 75,000 illegal migrants who have basically overstayed their visas. She wants a cap on visas to $130,000 a year, implement an 8-year waiting period for citizenship, refuse entry to migrants from nations known to foster extremist ideologies. Look, this is from a very kind of conservative idea or section of her suite of policies, but given there's that drift of people to one nation, is that something that you need to start looking at?
I want to acknowledge that ordinary Australians are incredibly frustrated about a government that has brought in over 1 million migrants over 2 years and has no control and no appreciation of the pressures that Australians are facing. I see that writ large in cities and suburbs and indeed regional areas across this country. So I want to acknowledge that. Now, I'm not going to give you a heads up, you wouldn't expect me to, on our migration policy principles, but you can expect to see them soon, and you can expect that they will acknowledge those pressures and that squeeze. Economic policy is at the centre of everything, and that's where we must focus. Migration, energy, they all link directly to the central theme of economic policy and how we grow productivity in this country. Remember the productivity roundtable? Everyone's forgotten it. Nothing came out of it. And it's not answering the questions that ordinary Australians need, which is how can we effectively back in businesses to grow, right, to take risks, to give back, to build this country and community. Okay. And the government has no answers to that, but we do. Just
a final one here, Susan. I'm out of time, but I want to ask you about protesters who might be looking to interrupt Isaac Herzog's visit today. Have you got a message for them?
Just stay at home. This is a welcome visit. It's an opportunity for the Albanese government to reset a strained relationship with Israel. But more importantly, it's an opportunity for every Australian to stand with Jewish Australians who just a few short weeks ago were in absolute pain and distress, where they still are. Sometimes it feels as if the country has moved on, but I know for those many Jewish Australians, this visit is important and it's welcome. It's important and welcome to all Australians. And let's just make sure those protesters acknowledge that in a country where you do have the right to protest, there are times you just need to step back and just let the hope shine through.
Sussan Ley, appreciate your time as always. Thank you.